They called it a silly hobby, a waste of time. Now, I get paid thousands to build custom boards, and the same people who mocked me are hitting me up for friend rates. You ever have something that just clicks in your soul, even if nobody else sees it? For me, that thing was keyboards. Yeah, mechanical keyboards. The kind with custom switches, weird keycaps, aluminum frames, clicky, nerdy, over-the-top stuff. I was 16 the first time I saw a post on a tech forum about a guy who hand-built his own keyboard from scratch. I clicked through every photo like I was studying sacred text. The angles, the colors, the sound test videos, I was hooked. Not just interested. Obsessed. But I knew better than to talk about it too much. My dad used to say, you should be focusing on real skills, not toys. My older brother called it my keyboard shrine. My buddies at school? They cracked jokes every time I pulled out one of my weird little builds. Is that one of your Transformers again? How's your keyboard cult going? And you know what? It hurt. Not like a punch to the face, more like those little paper cuts that sting longer. I never stopped, though. Not once. Every evening after homework, I would be in the garage, soldering switches or programming layouts. Some kids were out partying. I was out there sanding an acrylic plate or testing different lubes for stabilizers. At first, I did it in silence. Late nights, weekends, while everyone else watched TV or scrolled through apps. I would order parts with whatever I could save from my part-time job at the gas station. My first board was a disaster, keys misaligned, terrible layout, no case. But each build got better, cleaner, tighter, more personal. Still, I never showed anyone. Not until senior year, when I made a 65% layout with hand-wired internals and posted it to Reddit. I did not expect much, maybe a few upvotes if I was lucky. The post blew up. That night, my inbox flooded with messages. People asking if I took commissions. Someone offered $200, $200 just to build another one of my toys. That was the first time I realized maybe, just maybe, I had something here. Of course, when I told my dad, he laughed. Said, "So you're gonna make a living off keyboard parts now?" He laughed hard, like he thought it was the funniest thing he had heard in months. But that night, I started taking notes. Ideas. Future designs. A logo. Maybe even a brand name. They laughed. I kept building. And then, one day, something happened that changed everything. It was a Wednesday night when the email came in. I remember because I had just finished eating leftover pizza and was halfway through replacing the switches on a board I had messed up the first time. My inbox pinged, and there it was, subject line, custom build inquiry, referral from Reddit. I clicked it, not expecting much. Turns out, the guy ran a tiny retro tech blog and wanted a board that looked like something out of the early 90s, gray keycaps, beige case, big chunky style. He said he had seen my build in the subreddit showcase and wanted to feature the process on his site. He offered me $400 plus materials. I froze. Literally just sat there, staring at the screen like the words might vanish if I blinked too hard. $400. That was almost a full paycheck from the gas station. And here's where the lie comes in. I told my family I was tutoring someone after school. I even printed out a fake flyer and stuck it on the fridge so it looked legit. I could not tell them the truth, not when my dad kept saying stuff like, "You gonna type your way to success?" Or, "A real man learns a trade." So I spent 2 weeks building that retro-style keyboard. Nights were for soldering, sanding, programming. Days were for pretending I was helping some kid with algebra. It felt dirty, lying like that. But every time I doubted myself, I looked at the keyboard coming together. The sound it made, deep, buttery, perfect. The feel of it under my fingers. It felt like mine. When I finally shipped it off, I expected silence. Instead, 3 days later, I was on the blog's front page. This custom mechanical keyboard builder is one to watch. It was surreal. People were commenting, asking for links to my shop, which did not exist yet. A guy from Germany emailed me asking if I could build something similar but with silent switches for the office. Another person just said, "How much for anything you make?" I sat there staring at my screen, stunned, overwhelmed, and then I heard my dad's voice from the other room, yelling about the dishwasher not unloading itself. I closed the laptop, swallowed the feeling in my chest, and went back to pretending none of this was real. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. By the time I turned 21, I had built and shipped over 30 custom keyboards. All of them from the same cramped garage I used to sneak into just to avoid dinner conversations. I had no fancy setup, just a rickety folding table, some old lamps, a soldering iron I got secondhand, and shelves my uncle gave me when he cleaned out his storage unit. But somehow it was enough. I was still juggling shifts at a warehouse by then, mostly to keep my dad off my back. He thought I had given up the keyboard fantasy, and I let him believe it. Meanwhile, I had a full waitlist scribbled in a notebook tucked inside an old shoebox. Names, specs, prices. One guy in Colorado ordered 3 boards in 2 months, each with a theme based on sci-fi movies. Another from Toronto sent me keycaps made of real wood, said he wanted the feel of nature when typing emails. People got weird with their requests, but I loved it. Every project pushed me to learn something new. Resin casting, CNC routing, firmware tweaks. I created a small Instagram, barely used hashtags, just posted build pics and short clips of sound tests. I did not expect much. Then one morning, my phone blew up. One of my sound test videos had been picked up by a popular tech account, shared to over 1 million followers. My notifications went insane. Emails, follows, messages with subject lines like, "Please take my money." By lunch, I had over 200 DMs. Someone even asked if I could fly to their city to teach a build workshop. It felt like a dream. But I was still living in my childhood bedroom, still dodging questions like, "When are you going back to school?" Or, "What do you do all day?" That night, I looked at the numbers. If I finished just half of the current orders, I could finally move out. But just as that thought hit, something else did too. A message from my brother. "Hey man, saw your keyboard video." "That you?" I stared at it for a while. Because this was the same guy who once called it nerd junk in front of his friends. The same guy who laughed when he caught me recording typing sounds. Now he was watching from the sidelines. Curious, maybe even impressed. I typed a reply. But before I could hit send, something happened that changed everything. So, about that message from my brother. I ended up replying with a simple, "Yeah, that was me." Nothing else. No gloating. No snark. Just the facts. He never answered. But 2 days later, my mom asked if I could bring one of my little keyboard things to the family cookout that weekend. I should have known something was up, but part of me was desperate for someone, anyone, in my family to finally show interest. So I said yes. I picked out one of my cleanest builds. Navy blue case, smoked acrylic back, custom caps with a typewriter-style font. It looked sleek, professional. I even cleaned the switches, polished the keycaps, packed it all up in a padded carrying case. Felt proud. When I got there, the backyard was already crowded. My uncle was grilling. My cousins were playing cornhole. Dad was in his usual chair with a beer. I walked in, keyboard in hand. My brother spotted me first. There he is, the click-clack king. Laughter followed. Not the good kind. Someone else chimed in, asking if I had brought enough for the whole class. A third asked if I still lived in my fantasy typing dojo. I stood there, holding my work, and all I felt was heat rising in my face. My hands itched to put the case down and walk away. But I forced a smile and opened it up, placing the board gently on a table. My brother reached for it, smirking like he was about to make a joke. He pressed a few keys, then a few more. His expression shifted. Less mocking, more curious. Then it happened. My cousin spilled a full cup of orange soda, right across the table. The splash hit the edge of the board. My board. Liquid pooled around the keys like it was hunting for every crevice. I lunged, yanked it away, heart pounding. But the damage was done. "Relax," someone said. "It's just a keyboard." I did not speak. I wrapped it up, sticky and ruined, and walked to my car. I sat there in silence for almost an hour. Every key on that board had taken hours of careful placement, tuning, love. Gone in seconds. And for what? A laugh. I told myself I would quit. Right then, right there. But when I got home, something inside me shifted. I opened a new tab, ordered parts, started sketching a new design. Because if they were going to keep laughing, I was going to keep giving them reasons to choke on it. And then came the email that flipped my entire world upside down. It landed in my inbox at 2:28 in the morning. The subject line read, "Collaborate? Interested in your builds." I thought it was spam, or maybe another small-time collector hoping for a discount. But when I opened it, my heart skipped. It was from a buyer who worked in set design for a major streaming studio. Real Hollywood stuff. She had seen my sound test clip floating around, tracked down my Reddit page, and followed a breadcrumb trail straight to my inbox. She was working on a series set in a retro-futuristic world and needed a few custom mechanical keyboards to match the style: big, clunky, tactile, with glowing edge lighting and analog-inspired toggles. I read the message 3 times just to make sure it was real. She even included a reference photo, and it was eerily close to a concept I had doodled years ago in the margins of a spiral notebook. She offered a contract. A real one. NDA, timelines, compensation, $5,000 per keyboard, plus bonuses if the production got extended. And they needed 3. I sat back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. All I could think about was every time I had hidden this part of myself. Every time I had tucked away a keyboard before a guest came over. Every time my dad said, "Grow up already," or my brother rolled his eyes. Now, someone wanted my designs on screen. Real screen. Watched by millions. I signed the contract that same day. No hesitation. Over the next 6 weeks, I poured everything into those builds. I pulled all-nighters. I bought better tools. I upgraded my soldering station. I even started learning CAD software to model a custom frame. The day I shipped the last keyboard, I sat down and cried. Not out of stress. Not out of fear. Out of something deeper. Like I had crossed an invisible line I had been chasing for years. But just when I thought the high would last forever, something else crashed into my life. Someone from my past. Someone I never expected to hear from again. And he did not come alone. It was a Tuesday afternoon, just after I dropped off a supply order at the post office. I came home, checked my messages, and there it was. A text from my father. We had not spoken in months. Not since I finally moved out, stopped coming around for family dinners, and made it clear I was done justifying my life to people who never cared to understand it. His message was short. Heard you're doing well. Your brother wants to talk. Says it's important. I just stared at it. Not anger. Not curiosity. Just numbness. Then, 30 minutes later, a knock on my door. It was my brother. Same cocky grin, except now he had a nervous edge. He stepped in like he was walking into a job interview, complimented my setup like he had always been supportive. Said he had watched the show, the one with my keyboards on screen. Said he saw my name in the credits and could not believe it. Then he got to the point. He was starting a podcast. Something about gaming and tech culture. Needed branding. Visuals. And, of course, a signature sound. He wanted a custom keyboard. Said it would be perfect for the intro. Said people would love the click-clack theme. Said he would give me a shout-out. For a second, I imagined handing him one of my early builds, half-functional, ugly as hell, just to see what he would do. But I stayed calm. I listened. He asked if I would build him something at family rates. Family rates. I thought about all the times he mocked me. All the times he called it a waste of time. All the times I doubted myself because of voices that sounded like his. And now here he was, asking for a discount on the very thing he used to laugh at. I told him I was booked for 6 months. He said he could wait. I told him even after that, my minimum build fee was $1,500. He laughed, like I was joking. But I wasn't. That wiped the smile clean off his face. He stood there for a second, stunned. Then said, "Man, you used to build these for fun. What happened?" I looked him in the eye and said something I had waited years to say. "You called it a hobby. Now it pays my rent." He left after that. No handshake. No follow-up. But that night, I got 3 more inquiries. And one was from a tech startup that wanted to use my keyboards in their office promo. I was building something real. But the biggest twist? It was still coming. About a month after the whole family discount nonsense, I got an email from a name I recognized instantly. It was from SageWorks, a boutique tech brand known for premium accessories. They made those ultra-expensive monitors, aluminum laptop stands, minimal cable kits. The kind of company where even their cleaning cloths came in branded boxes. The email was straight to the point. One of their designers had seen my builds. They were looking to expand into the mechanical keyboard space. They wanted me to collaborate. At first, I thought they were offering a one-off deal. But no, this was big. They wanted to buy out my brand. The designs. The shop name. The mailing list. The waitlist. Everything. In exchange? A 6-figure payout, plus a signing bonus, plus a potential creative director title down the line. It was the kind of money that made my hands sweat. I sat there, rereading the contract in a daze. It would mean walking away from everything I had built, literally built with my own hands, but in return, I would never have to worry about bills again. I could move to a real studio, hire people, scale things. I called my best friend, Alex. He had been around since I was just messing with circuit boards in high school. He listened quietly while I read the terms, then asked one question. Would you still love it if it had someone else's name on it? And that was it. I spent the whole night pacing, thinking, remembering every burn mark on my fingers, every night soldering under a busted lamp, every keyboard I built by candlelight during a blackout because I just could not stop. By morning, I had my answer. I turned them down. Kindly, respectfully, but firmly, because this was not just a business. It was mine. The thing that got me through the loneliest nights. The one place nobody else's opinion ever mattered. I hit send on the reply, then turned off my phone. 2 hours later, a new order came through. From someone I had never expected to hear from again. And what they asked for? It knocked the breath out of me. It was from Natalie. We had not talked in almost 4 years. Not since she dumped me in a grocery store parking lot, told me I was too directionless for her future plans, and left in her brand new SUV while I stood there holding a 6-pack and a carton of eggs. Now she was back. Not in person, but in pixels. Her message started polite. Said she had seen my work featured in a digital design newsletter she followed. Said she was blown away by how far I had come. She mentioned how proud she was, how inspired. And then came the real reason for her email. She wanted to commission a keyboard. Not for herself, for her husband. Apparently, he was a product manager now at a trendy software firm, and they had just redone his home office. She said he was really getting into custom setups, and thought one of my boards would complete the space. I sat there blinking, stunned silent. This was the same guy she left me for. Some clean-cut corporate type who, if I remember right, once referred to mechanical keyboards as quirky toys. And now they wanted me to build him one? She even had the nerve to ask if I offered returning client discounts, as if we were still part of each other's lives. I did not respond that night. I needed to let it sit. Next day, I wrote her back. Said I was flattered she thought of me. Told her I was booked for at least 8 months, which was true. Added that I had a new pricing structure, no discounts available. She replied again. This time, her tone had shifted. She said she understood, but also said something strange at the end. Things didn't really turn out the way I thought they would. I never replied. I went to my workbench, pulled out a new case, snapped in a fresh PCB, and built the best damn keyboard I had ever made. Not for her. Not for him. Just for me. But even that was not the end. Because the next client, the one waiting in my inbox that same week, was going to change everything again. The subject line just said, high priority, studio order. I almost skipped it, thinking it was another bulk spam request. But I opened it, and there it was, a message from a creative lead at a well-known animation studio. The same studio that made the shows I grew up watching. The ones I used to quote word for word at lunch, back when kids thought I was weird for liking cartoons more than football. He said he had seen one of my keyboards in the hands of a developer they had hired for a pilot project. Said the team was obsessed with the aesthetic, how satisfying it looked and sounded on screen. They wanted 10 builds, each with a unique color theme, matching fictional departments in a sci-fi series they were launching. Something that feels real in a world that doesn't exist yet, he wrote. They needed them in 3 months, and they were willing to pay whatever I asked. For a moment, I just sat there at my desk, looking around my workshop, this tiny converted corner of my one-bedroom apartment. I had no assistants, no warehouse. Just me, a bunch of tools, and more passion than I knew what to do with. But I said yes. Not out of ego. Out of something deeper. Gratitude. Fire. Proof that the world I had quietly built in the shadows was now casting light. As the builds came together, I filmed every step. Not for clout, but for the younger me. The kid who was too scared to talk about what he loved. The teen who hid his soldering iron when friends came over. The guy who kept his dreams small just to stay safe. The first time I saw my keyboard show up in a trailer, I did not cheer. I just closed my eyes and let it sink in. Because this was what all those long nights were for. And yet, the final piece of the story was still waiting. One last knock at the door. From someone I never expected to face again. It was my dad. Standing in the hallway, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the doorway like he was not sure he should be there. I had not seen him in over a year. He looked older, smaller, like time had chipped away at him in places he never showed before. I was in the area, he said. I knew he was lying. We lived 2 towns apart. There was no area to be in. I let him in anyway. He walked slowly, glancing around the apartment like he was stepping into some alien world. His eyes landed on my workbench, neatly arranged, tools hung, shelves lined with boards in different states of build. Look serious now, he said. I nodded. He took a seat, looked at one of the finished boards resting on a soft cloth, ran his hand lightly over the keycaps, pressed a few keys. The sound echoed like memory. Your brother said you turned down a big offer, he said. And some show used your stuff. More nodding. He kept looking at the board. Then he said something I never expected to hear. I was wrong. It landed heavier than any insult he had ever thrown at me. And it cracked something open. I did not answer. I did not need to. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. I know you probably don't want this, he said. But if you ever want to, maybe build one together. I'd like that. Inside the envelope was a keycap, old, worn, yellowed with age. One of mine. My first build. He had kept it. After he left, I sat down at the bench, laid the cap beside a fresh PCB, started soldering. This was not about forgiveness, not about redemption. It was about me, choosing what I wanted to hold on to and what I was ready to let go. People used to laugh. Now they waited 6 months for a spot on my build list. People used to say, grow up. Now they asked me for advice on starting their own shops. People used to call it a hobby. Now it pays my rent. Funny. Nobody's laughing now.